Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So yeah, there was a lot of boxing this past weekend. Quite frankly, I've not really had much time to catch up on it, though I have seen the fight between Jared Anderson and George Arias. And you know, I'm always interested in seeing how heavyweight prospects develop, so thought I would check it out. Now, this was clever matchmaking on the surface from Top Rank. On paper, you know, this one may have given people the illusion that it would be a competitive fight. You know, Arias went in there with a pretty snazzy record of 18-0, no defeats. And a few years ago, there was a little bit of buzz surrounding George Arias, but you know, he's never really amounted to much. He's never really looked all that impressive. So, you know, he was really brought in there because his record looked good, but ultimately he wasn't really a threat. And that's how this fight played out, really. George Arias really brought nothing to the table to trouble Jared Anderson. And yeah, Anderson in this fight, he really had his way with George Arias. He eventually stopped him at the end of the third round. Arias' corner pulled him out, essentially. Ultimately, when you look at this fight, Anderson was the bigger man. George Arias is quite a short heavyweight. I think he's like 6 foot, something like that. You know, he's a short, stocky guy, but he never gave those short man problems to Jared Anderson. Arias was relatively stationary, flat-footed. For a small guy, you know, you expect a lot more head movement. But again, George Arias was a sitting duck for Anderson throughout this fight. Arias kept his head on centre line. That allowed Anderson to really utilise that jab, which was good in this fight. He could line up Arias with the jab, fire that pumping jab, and then work off that jab. You know, uppercuts through the middle, hooks around the side. The straight right hand, obviously. Anderson showed good punch variety in this fight, especially to the head. Again, hooks, uppercuts, good jab, straight right hand. Sometimes he'd mix it up and go to the body. But when it comes to Anderson, he usually goes to the body when he's at mid-range or the inside. That's one thing I like about Anderson is his punch variety. He seems comfortable at mid-range, on the outside. Decent enough up close as well. He's quite versatile in regards to how he can use his offense. That's something I like about Anderson. Obviously, in this fight with Arias, he showed pretty good power as well. He hurt Arias on a couple of occasions before his corner pulled him out. But yeah, really this was target practice for Jared Anderson. You know, there was nothing really coming back of any consequence from George Arias, which basically enabled Jared Anderson to take liberties, and I felt that showed in his performance to a certain degree because I saw openings there, but George Arias just wasn't really throwing. In particular, the overhand right was available for George Arias because, you know, Anderson was really just following Arias around, low lead hand, sometimes leading with power shots. The overhand right was there for George Arias, and he threw it on a couple of occasions and landed it, but he wasn't throwing that shot enough. And again, it just gave Anderson the luxury of being able to do what he wanted in there. You know, he realised that Arias wasn't a threat and he could just take liberties. Round 3 was when this fight ended. Nice little finish by Anderson. He upped the pace in the third round, landed some good combinations. He finished this fight, I believe. It was towards the end of the third round. He threw a right hook, left uppercut combination. Good combination. It badly wobbled George Arias. And he also had a cut on his eye at that point as well. A small cut, but in a bad place. He sees out the round after being badly hurt, gets back to his corner, and his corner pull him out. George Arias was moaning to his corner that he wanted one more round. But ultimately, he wasn't throwing anything. He wasn't fighting back. So, you know, he was getting pieced up. It was target practice. against a much bigger man. He got hurt. I don't really blame his corner for pulling him out, in all honesty. I don't really blame his corner. But yeah, I mean, this was a routine win for Jared Anderson. It's one of those fights to where you look at it and you ask yourself, what did Anderson learn from that fight? Not much in my opinion, because there wasn't any resistance. There wasn't any resistance. I like the way Anderson has been moved so far in his career. When it comes to a heavyweight prospect, I think the matchmaking has been fine, but he's now 14-0. Is it now time for him to take a step up of some description? I'm not saying top 10 level, but a guy who has some sort of ambition and brings a little danger to the equation. I've got one idea right now. I mean, Efe Ajagba, he has a contract with Top Rank, right? He signed to Top Rank right now. Why not make Jared Anderson versus Efe Ajagba? I know Ajagba, we kind of know where his level is at right now, but he's a hard puncher. Recently he just beat Stephen Shaw, who was an unbeaten American prospect. I think that fight makes sense. Jared Anderson versus Efe Ajagba, and then maybe after that, you could have Anderson versus, I don't know, Otto Wallin, someone like that. Those are the sort of fights I'd have Jared Anderson fight next. I'd say Efe Ajagba next, and then maybe Otto Wallin. I think that's a good course for Jared Anderson. We'll see how he gets on in those fights, and basically go from there. But yeah, I'd like to see Anderson fight Ajagba next. Not because I think Ajagba is great or anything like that, but he's a big dude, he hits hard. You know, you'd imagine he's still got some ambition left, unlike, you know, someone like George Arias, for example. So, I would say Ajagba next. Efe Ajagba next for Jared Anderson. But what about you guys? What did you make of his performance? Share your thoughts below on that. Me personally, I think offensively, Anderson looks very good, very interesting. Again, I like his creativity in regards to his combinations, how he leads with like right hooks or left hooks, whatever, because he was going southpaw and orthodox in this fight. I liked the variety, leading with power shots for combinations, for bodywork. I like all that, but I do see some defensive lapses there that maybe somebody could take advantage of. And by the way, that's why I think Ajagba would be a good next opponent for Anderson, because Anderson would have to be switched on in that fight defensively, because Ajagba can crack. But what about you guys? Who do you want to see? Realistically, who would you want to see Anderson fight next? Again, I say Ajagba, then maybe followed by Otto Wallin. That would be my kind of route for Jared Anderson. Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.